Hi, everyone. It's Brian Seidensticker here at Taxel Resources again. I know if you've watched one of our previous videos about how to use our refinancing program, or maybe you haven't, but typically the question is, well, what if I'm not going to a redeemable deed auction? Maybe I'm going to just a normal tax deed auction, like so many states have, Florida, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, etc., where there is no redemption period that you have to wait. So the program works very similarly. I guess the advantage here is you don't have to wait for that capital to recycle. But what typically happens for tax deed states, right? You can go to the auction, right? Typically you don't have insurable title immediately after that auction. There's a couple states where there's an exception to that, but you have to wait a certain amount of time, right? So there's two things that we can do at that point, right? If you can go get bank financing working with a title certification very quickly following the auction, chances are you can do that. The trick might be is getting the right valuation. Typically, banks are sticklers on only financing what you purchased it for, right? So if you got a great deal, let's say the property is actually worth $100,000, you got a great deal and purchased it for $30,000. Typically, a bank is only going to provide you with a percentage of that $30,000 purchase price. On occasion, especially after a hold period, you might be able to get an additional amount in that, right? But it's not as easy to work with. Now, our program is unique in the fact that we understand how tax sales work. We understand that you can still find properties and purchase them for less than what the actual retail market value of that property is. And so we don't add that additional layer of red tape and only provide you a percentage of what you purchased it for. If you purchase correctly, we'll give you your 100% of your purchase price back. And in some cases, we might actually give you an excess of that. So there's really two instances with tax deeds that we can work with you on. One is what I'll call is a non-insurable title closing. Basically, we'll close as soon as possible, right? And we will take the risk of whatever title issues there might be. Now, we definitely do a title search. We don't necessarily like to fund these, but we can. So you go, I'm going to use Michigan as an example, right? You go to the auction, you purchase that tax deed, you come to us immediately after that auction. If you go the uninsurable route, we'll only give you up to what you purchased it for, but we'll give you 100%, assuming you purchased it correctly, right? So you purchased it for $30,000, let's say $50,000, it's worth 100, right? If you go the uninsurable route, we'll give you your $50,000 back and say, great, go do it again. And now you have got the capital to do it over and over, and you can recycle it up to 10 times whatever your available capital is, up to 500K. Now the other option is an insurable title closing, right? Let's say you could go to a bank, right? But you purchased at 50K, they're only going to give you 75% of that, right? So you're going to get what, 37,500 out of that particular property, but it's worth 100,000, right? In your mind, right? Basically, you can come to us as long as we close with title insurance, which means we go through a title certification, right? Through one of the services out there, or one of the truncated quiet title processes, or there's title companies out there that don't have to do all of that in Michigan. Each state's a little different, but you can come to us if it's worth 100,000. We won't just give you 37.5. We'll actually give you up to 65% of the value of that property. So we'll give you $65,000 out of that property. So you bought it for 50, you're getting 65, you're actually making 15, and you still control that asset. Now, where that gets a little tricky is if you think it's worth 100 and we think it's worth 70, right? We're only going to give you a certain percentage of what the true as-is market value is, but we're giving you 65% of that. So the chances are it's still going to be well north of that 37,000 number that you might get from a traditional bank. So that's the difference, right? Is if there's no title insurance in the closing with us, we'll give you a max of your purchase price. We do a pretty thorough title examination to make sure we're not inheriting any real bad situations. On the other hand, if we can close with title insurance, we can exceed your purchase price up to 65% of the current market value of that property. Now, keep in mind, just what Zillow or Realtor.com or some of those other websites out there might say what that property is worth doesn't mean that that's what the property is actually worth in its current state, right? So we're going to do our own analysis to say, okay, yeah, it might be worth what Zillow and those other resources say after it's repaired. But typically, as you know, and we all know, most tax sale properties aren't in that condition. So Zillow might say it's worth 200,000, right? In reality, it might be worth 120. We're going to go off of that 120,000 valuation in its current state, not what it could be worth after it's repaired. Anyhow, wanted to touch base on how you can use this, for regular tax deeds and not just redeemable deed auctions out there. Hope you all are able to make this program work for you and grow in your success. And we look forward to working with you. Good luck with everybody. Take care.